Isn't it just lovely to be able to wake up on a Sunday morning or watch it live on Saturday, depending where you live in the world, and get 2 hours of very fun wrestling? That's basically how I would summarize Saturday night's main event, part 2 of The New Breed, which is not what anybody's calling it. And here's my thoughts. Now, Jesse Ventura is an absolute delight, and I don't know whether he was planned for this one, because there was some obviously nonsense with Hulk Hogan, and Hulk Hogan wasn't there, and then all of a sudden Jesse Ventura was back. But he must be featured on every show going forward. I'm jumping forward a little bit here. But when he was commentating on Bron Breakker versus Sheamus, went, oh, by the way, Bron Breakker is a Steiner, which means he could be stupid. I was like, man, I miss an old school classic heel commentator who doesn't give a flub. And there was a great near fall in that match as well, which we'll also talk about in a few minutes, after the first Brogue kick. And Bron Breakker got his foot on the rope about like 2.999. But actually, when you watch the footage, you could argue the referee could have hit for 3, but then he saw the foot, and Jesse made such an ordeal about this. It was brilliant, because while you didn't really need to protect Bron Breakker because he's so over anyway, it just added like an extra, what's the word I'm even looking for, but just an extra nugget to the information, and it gave you more to talk about after the fact. So keep bringing him back, keep him exclusive to Saturday night's main event, because it does make it feel more novel and it makes it feel more gimmicky, but I mean that in a positive way. I just wanted to throw it in there, and overall I just thought it was a good show. I do understand people saying, well, it lacks jeopardy, and I never thought this person was going to win and that person was going to win. I think it's a retroactive aspect of it that we'll have to revisit in the future, because if we get to number 3 of this year, which I think is about July, September, August time, and all of a sudden we do see a title change, and we do see a massive upset, that will obviously have a bigger impact because we haven't got it in the first 2, and I think it was much of a muchness compared to the one we did in December. This one probably came too close to that one. It was a bit like, why are we doing this again already? But there's not that many big shows before WrestleMania. Obviously the Netflix debut counts as one, this counts as one, the Rumble, Elimination Chamber, and then Mania. There was a time when you get almost double that, because WWE was out of control. But I thought every single match did what it had to do, apart from 2 foibles. One I may be wrong about. Again, you can make sure you check out What Culture Ups and Downs, where we have the performative version of this. This is just us chilling out, but when you are here, please do subscribe. I would appreciate that, and share it with your friends if you find it entertaining. But Rhea Ripley versus Nia Jax, again, if I was marking this like some kind of teacher, I would tick all the boxes, I would give it an A and say, well done, well revised, whatever the right thing would be, because Nia Jax was there to be the best version of Nia Jax. I say this a lot and people don't know what I'm talking about. Nobody could do Nia Jax the way Nia Jax does Nia Jax. And you're like, well, of course, Simon, she's Nia Jax, but I can't explain that to you. Either you get it, which is wonderful, or you don't. You think I'm a moron, totally fine. Also, Mum, lovely to see you. And Rhea Ripley just decided, man, I'm going to remind everyone that I'm a damn good professional wrestler. And they just sort of had, it was an exhibition match. I understand the championship was on the line, but Nia was going to show out, Rhea was going to show out. You also have the extra incentive in the sense that Nia is bigger than Rhea, so she can throw her around, which does make it unique. You don't usually get that, but that also allowed Rhea Ripley to do a dive or cross body onto Nia Jax to the outside, which was also awesome. And you had Michael Cole telling us constantly, oh, it's Nia Jax, here's her career. Oh, it's Rhea Ripley, here's her career. Let me tell you about the Royal Rumble, because WWE is hoping a bunch of new fans are going to watch this, and I hope they do. I never understand why people want to gatekeep wrestling. AEW, TNA, Ring of Honor, WWE, New Japan, I hope you find all the sports entertainment and the love for it grows across the world, which sounds like some kind of charity single. That's not how I mean it. But essentially, you know, we kind of insinuated that Nia Jax could have won because she hit one Annihilator, but she had to pose. How many times have I told you this? You never played a video game. If you hit the D-pad at the wrong time, your opponent is going to get the better of you. And Rhea Ripley hit this awesome electric chair. Just pick Nia Jax up because she is jacked. Hits the riptide, which is also very impressive. 1, 2, 3. So I don't actually think we needed to go back to Nia Jax and Rhea Ripley this soon, because it was basically a year ago since we built up to that big Elimination Chamber pay-per-view main event. But they work so well together, and it's just so much fun. And if this is about showing out and again trying to get brand new watchers to go, wow, that person's pretty good, they absolutely hit a home run. So I have no issue with that whatsoever. And there is rumors now that we're going to do Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair at WrestleMania. Another reason why I hope both the men's and women's division carried on their current path. If you did Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky, I'm going to be happy. If you did Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair, I'll be doubly happy, because I've wanted that match for ages. But even if you did do Rhea Ripley versus Bayley, which we've teased, you could sell that in the right way. And even if you went back to Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch, Becky I think is coming back at the Royal Rumble, hence why we've been advertising Charlotte so hard, so one could be a surprise and one not. That will work too. So there is just so much good at the moment when it comes to your tippity stop stars. There's nothing wrong with that, which is, yes, when we got to Bron Breakker versus Sheamus, I could watch them fight all the time, which is a dumb thing to say. It doesn't really make any sense because it's a lie. After about a week, I'd probably be like, man, do you want to do anything else? Maybe just like go watch a television show or something like that. Just a walk. I really would like some oxygen right now. But they smash each other, and you know they're hitting each other hard too. Sheamus has said this in all interviews recently. I'm going to hit you as hard as possible, but you have to hit me back, if not harder. And the spear, man, he jumped off Simba the Steel Steps and Bron Breakker just wrecked him with the spear. Sheamus almost hit his head on those things, which probably would have killed him. Also, when we got that awesome 2.999, Jesse Ventura just selling it like, well, I do not believe it. And it was super interesting too, because Sheamus isn't the bad guy in this. Bron Breakker isn't really the bad guy in this either. But it was just nice for Jesse Ventura to pick Sheamus' side, basically because he hates the Steiners based on storyline stuff that happened years ago. And Bron Breakker won after he'd worked over Sheamus' ribs, basically from that spear on the outside. It was like, oh no, his tum-tum is in all the danger in the world. Eventually, Sheamus tries the second brogue, would have won, can't do it. Bron Breakker spears him 1, 2, 3. But I do not think this should be the end. And I do believe there's maybe a clip or a picture going around afterwards of Sheamus being like, man, what am I going to do? And we sold that story hard that Sheamus has never won the Intercontinental title. You have to do it, and I would do it at WrestleMania 41. That way, Bron Breakker can kind of spin off now and get a few more wins against some other opponents. And then when the time is right, you double back down to Sheamus. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think Sheamus, if he hasn't declared for the Royal Rumble, should, and makes it very clear, if I win, I'm going after the IC title. I understand there is a redundancy to that, but he's not going to win. So it can just be a nice side quest story beat. When he is in the Rumble, then when he gets eliminated, you can be like, oh, I'm so sad. When he tells Bron Breakker, listen, do or die, now or never, last chance saloon. You versus me at WrestleMania 41. If I can't beat you, I will never challenge for that Intercontinental Championship again, even after you lose it. That will foreshadow it, but that's okay. When he does win, we'll all feel beautiful. And even if he did lose it the next night on Raw or SmackDown, who the flub cares, man? He will have finished off, or I guess checked all the boxes when it comes to a proper Hall of Fame all-time career. Sheamus has always been underrated, which is why I'm glad he has just signed a new 5-year deal, because I think people are finally starting to understand. It was like a comfort blanket, this. Like if all of a sudden you woke up at 3 a.m. in the morning and you just needed to calm down, well, this would actually give you adrenaline, but you just know it's always going to be good. So if you want to rely on it as a friend, that's what you should do. I don't even know what that means. We then go into the TV portion of the TV show because it was the contract signing. Now, let me just talk about my negative, I suppose. And I need clarity with this because, listen, I watch all the wrestling, right? So sometimes things actually fall out of my brain. But I thought we were doing this because of some sort of addendum that Nick Aldis had talked about. Maybe I misunderstood the segment. Like I say, my IQ's not very high. I didn't see any kind of addendum. Shawn Michaels was overwatching, he said, because Nicky Aldis couldn't handle these two, although I thought Nick Aldis had been doing a good job. We made sure they gave up their titles to apparently hang up in the air in Texas, even though the Rumble was in Indianapolis. And then they had a big fight, and we'll get to that in just one bit. But that part I didn't get, and it left me asking questions, which isn't the worst thing in the world, because there was so much entertainment here. You know me, I'm still the same OG, and I'm always like, well, okay, that kind of sucks. And then I move on instantly, because it's just wrestling, the most important of the least important things. But that one did leave me just a bit, I don't understand what's going on after the segment was done. But as always, Shawn Michaels, great, absolute legend in San Antonio. You know, that's his sort of area, for lack of a better term. Kevin Owens was wearing Cody Rhodes sucks eggs t-shirts, and now we're calling back to Terry Funk and Dusty Rhodes. Kevin Owens' t-shirt game is the best in the business. And Cody got pissed off here, which I actually think sort of opens the door for us to speculate a little bit, because he was like, I'm not even thinking about you, Kevin Owens. I'm not even thinking about the Royal Rumble. I'm looking past you at WrestleMania. I don't think Kevin Owens is going to win at the Rumble, but now he could, and the story could be Cody got too arrogant, needs to go back to the drawing board. He can win at the Elimination Chamber. I just don't think, as much as I want Kevin Owens to be world champion, I don't think Cody Rhodes should lose now, because if he can hold it that little bit longer into WrestleMania 41, if he does take on a John Cena, it's just going to feel even bigger. Although I saw somebody make a great point the other day, and it floored me, figuratively. I'm not a weirdo. Maybe Kevin Owens does win. You do Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn for the world championship, because if you are going to do Cody Rhodes versus John Cena, does it even need a title? Now, my counterpoint to that would be yes, because I think you need the jeopardy of, oh my gosh, is John Cena going to win his 17th title by beating Cody Rhodes? And if there is no championship there, it's like, well, either of you can win. Doesn't even matter. That's where the sort of stakes come into play. But I do like it as an idea. And as always, these two have just had a really good feud. I mean, it's kind of gone over 2024 and 2025, but I would put it in feud of the year territory. I think they've all done really good stuff, and they've never dropped the ball. And of course, you got the big hoo-ha at the end after they had both signed, which is very easy, by the way. Apparently, you just need Shawn Michaels there, and they will listen to him. Kevin was going to give him the package pile driver. Cody Rhodes gives him a super kick, and then Shawn Michaels does a super kick. I don't know how Shawn Michaels is, but he must be mid-50s, still hits that thing like a dream. So that guy is an absolute Hall of Famer, quite obviously, twice I believe, literally I should say. And I mean, Kevin Owens really needs to get revenge on Shawn Michaels now. Isn't it amazing that Kevin Owens has worked with every single person he's considered a hero. That's why he's one of my GOATs. I think he's fantastic. But yeah, this made sense because, once more, if you're trying to draw in a new audience, there's no point just showing the matches. You should have more promos. You should have more skits. Otherwise, if they go to Raw, especially wanting matches, they'll leave going, wait a minute, what? Where was the wrestling? Sometimes it is all talking, but I just like it. I like both people, right? And sometimes I don't want to, and I can't get rid of the human side of wrestling. So when you see them sort of delivering on this kind of a level, they sold me on the Raw Rumble match. And it does have enough jeopardy for me to go, oh, maybe they are going to do something crazy, but at the same time, maybe they won't. Which actually then led into my other disappointment. Is that the right word? Maybe not. My other, I can't say down because I'm gimmick infringing myself. You know what I'm talking about as I ramble on. Jacob Fatu should have just beaten Braun Strowman. We should have got the 1, 2, 3. Now the angle and the aftermath was fantastic, so this ain't going to make a blind difference to anybody. But stopping Jacob Fatu from doing multiple hip attacks in the corner, I don't get those spots. And somebody did say to me, but Simon, the rule is you must get out of the corner. All right, but that's a pretty lame rule, and it's not one that WWE enforces all the time. I think it would have been way better if he did it, and he did it, and he did it, and then you got the blood. Don't forget, Braun Strowman was bleeding at the end anyway, which I presume was planned. And if then he's sort of, again, dead and bloody in the corner, and Jacob drags him out into the middle of the ring and does his moonsault 1, 2, 3, then looks into the corner, you can still do all the crazy stuff. But even though a lot of people are on his train anyway, which is not a euphemism, I think that would have even elevated him higher. And it's just his time. I keep saying this like John Cena. But Braun Strowman didn't need to win. Braun Strowman doesn't need to be protected. That's not me saying Braun Strowman isn't brilliant. I think he's had a great run. If you go back to 2016-17, that guy was the absolute best. But it's like the whole Brock Lesnar John Cena thing at SummerSlam 14, 15, whatever it is. Cena had to get murdered in order to do what he wanted to do with Brock. And look, Jacob Fatu is going to have more opportunities to do this, but I just felt like this was the time. Sometimes you do feel it in your Tootsie Toes, and I couldn't shake it. But again, match was awesome. Big men, let's do it together. Shouldn't have said that. Slapping man meat. Tama Tonga didn't get involved. They did cut promos, as whatever we're calling the new bloodline now. And they're excellent together. I really like them. They have good chemistry too. And they just threw each other around. But it was also Jacob Fatu throwing Braun Strowman around, including when he did that Samoan drop through the table, which was excellent. So once again, if you've just been exposed to him, how could anyone not be like, that's the coolest guy ever? He had saliva coming out of his mouth at the end, and he still came across like a badass. And everybody is cheering him. So don't you tell me that Jacob Fatu is a heel. And I know that some people go like, well, if we booked everyone like this, they'd all get the same connection. I don't think that's true. I think WWE has tapped into what makes Jacob Fatu so good. They're just going with it. That's not going to be the same for everyone. Like if you took, doesn't work with Daniel Bryan / Bryan Danielson because he did have that edge. WWE just rarely showcased it. There'll be somebody I'm not thinking of now, but you don't want them to be portrayed that way because it would feel fake. It doesn't feel fake with Jacob Fatu because I think it's genuinely real. So ultimately, he still comes out of this the winner. But when I put my geek hat and my nerd glasses on, I think you could have really lent into this, and hopefully we'll do the rematch at Elimination Chamber, and again, he can just wreck him, or the Royal Rumble, I suppose. Although, here's my worry, and I bet this does happen. Braun Strowman will now eliminate Jacob Fatu from the Rumble, which will lead to the Elimination Chamber, and Jacob Fatu will finally get his win. I don't even want Braun Strowman to throw Jacob Fatu out of the Royal Rumble. We haven't done this for a while. Jacob Fatu should eliminate himself in the Royal Rumble because he gets so mad and he goes so insane that he just throws about 100 people out, then he accidentally throws himself over the top as well. But he doesn't care. He looks into the camera like, I meant to do it, and I'll do it again. He's brilliant. US title run probably from WrestleMania. World title run at some point in 2026. He should be fast-tracked to the top of the card. Some guys just work. You don't have to overthink it. You don't have to look into it. You don't have to dissect it. You just feel it in your bones. The man is brilliant, and he does get a lot of worth from Tama Tonga too. Do not split these guys up. Sometimes let them tag. Sometimes let them do singles. But they work together, man, and it's almost, I understand he's the lone wolf, and that's the Baron Corbin, whatever we call him, the Samoan werewolf. But sometimes I think that wrestling in general goes, oh, we should split them up because that's the thing to do. Man. If you want to keep Jacob Fatu as a heel, which is, what is a waste of time? It's not going to work. Tama Tonga can be there every now and then when you need some shenanigans and you need some distractions, and WWE does love doing that. So listen, it was so much fun, and it was so brilliant. Seeing Braun Strowman in the corner, literally, I'm murdered now. Absolutely fantastic. I'm intrigued to see what we do with Jacob Fatu. I would imagine LA Knight versus him at WrestleMania for the US Championship, which I'm 100% down for. And then Gunther and Jey Uso clearly went, man, I don't think anybody's buying that the non-obvious people are going to win, why don't we do two of the best near falls, probably of 2025? I understand it's still young, but that's not the point. The first or the second or the third spit, there was a lot of spits in this match, but after one of them, Gunther kicked out at the last second, and that hooked in the crowd. So that when Jey Uso went up for the Uso splash, and he did that "I'm going to sit on you" pin, which we've seen work so many times. I think he did it when he won the IC title too. And even if you weren't consciously aware of that, I do think when we're so into the product, as people say, it does get in our subconscious. But when Gunther kicked out, one, if he had left it even a millisecond more, we would have been in one of those, we've just screwed up, ladies and gentlemen. But this place went unglued, because I went crazy as well, not based on what people were doing in the building. I was like, ugh! Then I realized how stupid I was, because they reeled me in. That's the whole point of a near fall, of a 1-2-ooh. Get your stupid t-shirt at prowrestlingtees.com/Simon Miller. So really good stuff. And the last 5 minutes, I would say, was all at that level. And the first, I don't know how long this match was, 10, 12, let's just say the first 5 minutes, it was just Gunther kicking the absolute crap out of Jey Uso for, say, 3.5 minutes, when Jey Uso realized, man, if he's going to hit you, you need to hit him. They just slapped and punched each other so hard in the face. When we got to the signature moves, obviously Jey Uso got to kick out some power bombs too. I never actually thought that Jey Uso was going to win. I think it would have been a bad idea, because he wouldn't have held the belt for that long. I don't think he's going into WrestleMania as the champion, nor is there a need to. So you don't want to do the same thing we did with the IC championship. It may feel a little bit like a copy and paste job, but just, it's a really fun main event. And you do get away with more when it's meant to be a television show, because for whatever reason, we've kind of made a dividing line between what you expect from a TV main event and a pay-per-view main event, a PLE. But I would say that it was probably above what we usually see on Raw. And Jey Uso is just made. He's just made. He can lose. But people are so behind him, and his entrance gets such a cheer, and people are so into the yeet stuff. He is bulletproof. And this is what I'm talking about. It's another guy you could not sometimes you can't defeat people. They need to have some wins. I really respect him. I think he's tremendously underrated and really proving it now. But Dolph Ziggler very sadly fell into that pattern when he was just defeated and beaten too much that people almost gave up hope. Whereas with Jey Uso, the hope is still there because people just love him so much. It's a bit like Ilya Dragunov. He's got that same magic. But if you were going to do it with a Jacob Fatu, people would be like, you're meant to be a badass, dude. What are you doing? And I'm not saying that Jey Uso doesn't have sort of a bad assery to him, but it's not his one sole defining mechanic. So I just love it. I think Gunther is a great world champion. The finish was a bit anticlimactic because it was powerbomb, 1, 2, 3. But his face, it was like, oh my gosh, that was hell on earth. I almost got beaten there, and that almost changes the effect of what you got at the finish, because he sells you emotion, trying to sound like some old vet that is working the Texas indie scene, which is the dumbest thing I will ever say. So I always look at it like, so people go, oh man, we should have got more title changes. I don't watch wrestling for title changes, right? That's not what I watch it. I don't watch it for swerve. Sometimes you need those things because the time and the environment calls for it. But I watch pro wrestling to be entertained, or sports entertained, dare I may say. And I just think the Saturday Night's Main Event delivers almost because you can lower your expectations for it. It's like an extra. It's an add-on. You can skip these shows at the moment, and it's not really going to make a huge difference when you watch the product. But everyone goes out there. It's on NBC, which is network TV in America, so it's very exciting. It could grow everything. No notes, basically. Again, I would have had Jacob for 2 once. That's a lie. I did have a massive note, and I would have explained that addendum. Like, I like WWE not hitting us over the head with things. The new version is so much better. That it's not like, here is everything that's going to happen. Sometimes you do need to slap me around the face, so maybe I've got lost in the mud there. It doesn't matter. The Royal Rumble's next week. This will serve as a really good pivot point for it. Overall, excellent stuff. I had a good time. Now, I want to know if you had a good time too, even if you had a bad time. That's okay. We all have opinions. Drop me a comment down there. Also, please do click the video on the screen because YouTube loves engagement. It will be me talking about the surprise entrance for the Royal Rumble. Like the video, share the video, subscribe. Again, Pro Wrestling Tees and all my social media, and patreon.com and grillermind.com. Use the code Simon to get 10% off, and just go to grillermind.com/Simon. Again, there's a link right down there to get fitness supplements that I use and think are wonderful. All of that supports the channel, but nothing helps more than your time, so I appreciate that. Thank you for always standing by me. Have a great Sunday if you're watching this on day one. Have a great week. Take care. I'll see you then.